The creation of India and Pakistan as individual and independent nations was chaotic and rushed in many ways. Initially, the British colonial authority in the Indian subcontinent had begun the process of leaving by the end of 1948, but as the local situation became increasingly unsettled, the date was bumped up by an entire year. This proved to be especially troublesome because of the fact that giving the subcontinent freedom was not the only thing being done. When it was first decided that the British would leave, negotiations began between the British and Indian representatives, particularly the representatives of the Indian National Congress Party, Jawaharlal Nehru, and the voice of India's Muslim League, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The latter was concerned that an independent, united Indian subcontinent would create an unfair political environment for the Muslim minority in the Hindu-dominated region. Jawaharlal Nehru, however, was in favor of united India, but Britishers were simply in favor of leaving as soon as possible, which would eventually result in the decision to partition the Indian subcontinent into a Muslim and a Hindu majority. The main goal was to divide India into a Hindu minority Indian state and Muslim minority state of Pakistan. Cecil Radcliffe, the British civil servant with the duty of drawing up the borders for these new nations, aimed to split the state on religion lines, while the millions of Muslims left in India could migrate into new-found Pakistan and vice versa. This, however, did not happen so simply. Given the options of choosing either side, some of the princely states that had previously been part of British India struggled to decide between India or Pakistan. Jammu and Kashmir would be the most notable of these, as the region had a complex religious demography that made it nearly impossible to pick a side. And this, unfortunately, would not sit well with India or Pakistan. When the partition became official, the ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, also known as the Maharaja, had at first hoped to maintain his princely state as its own independent entity. This nevertheless would change after only a couple of months. What actually occurred next is hotly debated due to the fact that both sides have vastly differing claims as to how tensions escalated and why. According to India, Pakistan was the clear aggressor. Indian military sources claim that Pakistan had launched an invasion plan called Operation Gulmarg, in which they intended to invade and take Jammu and Kashmir by force. The operation would apparently involve the recruitment of 20 Pashtun tribal militants to be prepped by mid-September, with the invasion intended to fully begin the following month. Allegedly, the discovery of this entire plan could be credited to an Indian officer by the name of Major O.S. Calcutt while serving with the Bennu Brigade. He was supposedly informed of the invasion by mistake and in turn alerted the Indian official. However, Pakistan had an entirely different story to tell. Prior to outbreak of the war or alleged invasion plan, a particularly relevant region of Jammu and Kashmir was facing its own growing revolt. With the eruption of World War II and British decision to enter it, tens of thousands of men from the region of Poonch joined the fight through the British Indian Army. With their dismissal after the war's end, these troops were allowed to return to civilian life alongside their weapons, which greatly disturbed the Maharaja Hari Singh. Thanks to high taxation and additional discord, Poonch and the leadership of Jammu and Kashmir had already been on uneasy terms. But this would prove disaster for Maharaja Hari Singh if the people of Poonch decided to rebel. In response, that July, the Maharaja ordered all of the Muslim veterans to give up their weapons, which instantly set off an alarm bell for Muslim population in general within the Poonch. As tension rose, stories diverged again as to what really occurred. According to the Muslim Conference, the Maharaja's Hari Singh army responded to the increasingly rebellious spirit in Poonch by firing up crowds of unarmed citizens burning homes and dissolving villages. On the flip side, Singh's sources insist say that it was the Punch militant who became violent and attacked the state forces first. What really happened is not exactly known, but it's clear that by this point in time, Punch and the Maharaja were as divided as ever. The Muslim conference responded to the growing threat by informing the Pakistan official that if they did not step up to protect their Muslim brothers in Punch, all of Jammu and Kashmir may soon fall to India. And this assumption wasn't too far off. Maharaja Hari Singh, in contrast, had made the decision to accede to India in the case that a choice between one side or the other had to be made. By now, however, this would be far from peaceful conclusion. Pakistan was already cutting ties with Jammu and Kashmir in the form of resources and supplies, and the true revolt was building. Whether it to be because of pre-planned invasion operation or in response to oppression and violence from Maharaja's Hari Singh government, Pakistan was on its way to the border of Punch. The first significant armed conflict in the region is believed to have occurred that Thurar at the start of October as the rebels began their campaign to take control of Punch, which they found weak access with. Even without the official support or aid from the Pakistan army by this time, the rebels of Punch were holding their grounds, which subsequently pushed the fearful Maharaja Hari Singh into the arms of India. Initially, Singh requested military aid from India, but it was told in reply that in order for Jammu and Kashmir to receive such help, it would have to accede to India first. This was a fair enough deal for the Maharaja Hari Singh, and thus it was accepted. It was this, though, that pushed Pakistan to officially mobilize its army for war in Jammu and Kashmir, claiming that India had now obtained the state through violence. Pakistan wanted to take matter of Jammu and Kashmir into its own hand. By May 1948, Pakistan was officially belligerent in the war. Before the full-blown involvement from Pakistan, however, between the rebels and the Jammu and Kashmir's Muslim state forces who would defect upon deployment, the side of Punch quickly took the upper hand. As the war picked up, pushing from near the Pakistan border over farther north, Jammu and Kashmir's Gilgit Scout switched sides and joined the rebellions, marking a notable territorial victory from early on. Nevertheless, the war was greatly chaotic as both sides clashed over regions and villages such as Jangar and Uri. By this point, India has sent in its military aid and the allied state forces began to create a more stable front. As fall came to close, the number of Indian reinforcements grew big enough for counterattack to launch upon the northern part of the front line. The rebel forces were consequently pushed back to Uri and beyond, as the Indian troops recaptured some of the previous lost territories along the way. Along the rest of the front lines, the fight ranged on just the same as the rebels made headway farther and further from the border. Still, India was not done sending reinforcements and military support, including another counterattack down south which pushed the front line back towards Pakistan, having previously reached as far as Jangar. However, up toward the center, Punch was still under siege and Indian reinforcements were proving not enough at relieving the state defenders of the attack. More territory, such as Mirpur, would fall to the rebels as the front line began moving back away from the Pakistani border once more. Jangar, for example, was retaken before the lines stalled for some time. Another Indian counteroffensive followed on the southern portion of the front, again pushing the rebels and Pakistani forces back beyond Jangar, eventually forcing the attackers into a retreat. Up north, the Indian front was finding similar success, although of even farther. It was the Gilgit Scout and their Pakistani allied who were the ones moving the line, reaching all the way to Kargil as they broke the past the defending troops. Leh was the next target by this invader, although the city would not fall and the attackers were eventually pushed back. As the Indian counterattack continued to resist, the battle was taken all the way to the north of Dras and Kargil once more. As the front was ever changing, Poonch would ultimately be freed from siege by the Indian forces as well. And as the clashes died down while India awaited the arrival of some more reinforcement, this pause would be much longer than anticipated. After intense negotiation in the UN, a ceasefire was instead agreed upon and adopted on January 5, 1949. Pakistan was compelled to withdraw all its forces while India was granted permission to preserve a minimal level of military presence within Jammu and Kashmir with the intention of maintaining law and order. While Pakistan was able to hold onto some of the territories they had gained, India took the vast majority of Jammu and Kashmir, though a referendum was supposed to be held to determine its fate. By the end of war, it is believed that the Indian forces sustained over 4,000 casualties in total, with roughly 1,100 killed and 3,100 were wounded. On the Pakistan side, potentially 6,000 were dead and 14,000 wounded. And sadly, this would only be the first of violent war between India and Pakistan. In the upcoming days, India and Pakistan had fought many times and India get upper hand in those many wars. Hopefully, India and Pakistan will resolve the issue and become a sustainable solution for their own. Thank you for watching. If you like such kind of videos, do subscribe our channel for the next upcoming videos. Thank you.